Hello, welcome back to Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, host of Mega Manga Mondays and writer for Screen Rant and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can hear about that later. But today we are going to be talking about One Piece, chapter 1079, My Hero Academia 383, and chapter 2 of JoJo Lands, which is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 9. Kind of had a weird upload schedule recently, but we got a good group ahead of us to talk about some very exciting chapters today. We'll go ahead and just kind of intro ourselves real quick. Carlisle, how are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, I'm Carlisle. I'm a writer at Screen Rant, the anime and manga section. I also am a indie game developer. I'm working on my visual novel, Elven Revenue Service.
Absolutely, man. Loving those updates on Twitter for that. That's coming along nicely, it seems.
Yeah.
And we also got Francesco, buddy. How are you?
I'm fine, guys. How are you? I'm Francesco. I'm also a writer for Screen Rant for the mostly anime and manga section these days. Even if I always forget to put my description down here, but you just have to guess. And happy to be here and chat some manga with you.
Absolutely. Well, the mystery is always accentuating, so it helps.
Yeah.
We'll dive right in. You probably want to hear us talking more manga than about ourselves. So today we'll go ahead and start with the huge chapter. I say that almost every time we talk about One Piece because this arc is just huge thing after huge thing. But this chapter was called "The Emperor's Crew: The Red-Haired Pirates." Oh man, we had so much to talk about with this chapter. We'll try to keep it as contained as possible, but we finally got a lot of stuff that we've been waiting. Honestly, I'd say since chapter 1 for. We finally got to see Shanks in action. And that's not an understatement. It was just wild to see him. He only used one attack, and it was enough to completely shift the landscape of One Piece's politics and stuff like that. Power scalers are going nuts still. That's the last half of the chapter. The first half, we kind of got into the Egghead Trader, which was, of course, York. I don't think we got to talk about that last time. It all kind of makes sense the more we think about it. It's like Vegapunk managed to perfectly create a celestial dragon, essentially. The embodiment of greed and narcissism. Like, he unwittingly created the perfect thing that would want to be one of the worst people on this planet. And so getting to hear how that plan was all laid out was exciting. Things are getting desperate on Egghead with so many forces. And just as soon as we didn't think things could get more chaotic, for me, probably second best thing about the chapter was seeing the Blackbeard Jolly Roger rolling up on Egghead. Like that. It just, as soon as you didn't think Egghead could get more crazy, introducing that into it, which doesn't seem like good news for Law and that fight that was going on over there. Before we start getting into the red-haired stuff, Francesco, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Egghead's newest developments.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So I was mute. The chapter begins with what's basically maybe a little throwaway explanation of why York is the traitor, because people were going, how is this possible, and this and that. I do not really like it, because it's almost like saying, you could have never guessed it because I didn't give you enough elements to really guess who was the traitor. And there are still some things that don't make sense, because it was said in a previous chapter that people on the same level of the command hierarchy for the Seraphim should not be able to overwrite an order given by a person of the same level, which does not explain how York was able to override, I think was Edison order to stop fighting, something. Edison or the other. or the other guy. Maybe, it's because she gave the order first, so it was all sort of a fake out. I don't know, still, it's a bit messy, but the most interesting part of the chapter, obviously, it's right. And so we got Shanks is so powerful, all that. Yeah, people are obviously talking about it a lot. But I think the most interesting part of the chapter is that one of the characters of the franchise was essentially erased from the story.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm talking about Kid. And it's even more surprising because we just saw Kid coming hot from the Wano arc, beating a Yonko, getting a 3 billion bounty, bragging about how he knows where the next poneglyph is, was going after that. And now it's over. Like, I don't see these guys coming back.
Right.
And
I mean,
I think this tells us...
We even got those narrator panels of saying defiantly that that's the land of the giants, the land of warriors. The kid pirates are completely destroyed. I think the fan translation was saying like completely wiped off the map. Even like just both translations didn't give much room or hope for the future of the kid pirates. I enjoyed reading a lot of people's opinions on the whole matter, and it's just like Law, Kid, and Luffy each symbolize like very, very different approaches to their goals. And Kid always represented like just the brute force. Don't think about it, just go. And this was just clear proof that sort of planning or that sort of mindset's not going to work in this final arc of One Piece. It's all you got to think a little bit more about each one of these confrontations now, because it's only the big guys left now. And it also didn't seem very encouraging for Law. So Luffy was the only one. Go on. Yeah.
That's something that Luffy could have easily done in another situation, right? Jump into a fight without thinking. So I think that here, what this tells us, this tells us two things. First is that, of course, as we knew, Shanks is going to play a major role in whatever is left of the story. And by major, I mean major, like he's done being a cool side character that shows up, in the nick of time. He's going to be one of the main characters of this final part of the story. So Oda needed to establish how strong he is, that he's stronger than the Yonko that we saw before, right? And establish that he's on Roger's level because he's using the same attack and all of that.
Yeah,
which
that was cool.
Understandable. It's understandable why he had to use Kid. That's because I think a lot of these characters will not find space in the final arc of the story. Because let's face it, guys, they're not the main characters, right? We have a full cast of 10 main characters plus everyone who is revolving around them, right? Plus the villains, the bad guys. If Oda wants to keep things neat in the grand finale of this story, then this is going to happen a lot. We're going to see a lot of characters that we like and that we hoped could sort of make it to the finish line, that they're just not going to make it, which is understandable. I think I understand it. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand why this is happening.
I really enjoy it because I think I can agree that One Piece is just, it's so big that there's so many characters, and I'm really glad to hear that not all of them are going to have a happy ending. It's really going to help establish the stakes and the tension for everything moving forward, because it's even characters as well established as Kid and seemingly Law, because with Blackbeard's Jolly Roger showing up at Egghead, that's, not giving good signs that Law's battle went well either. and which is wild because Law is like one of the most popular characters in every One Piece popularity poll. And also with Kid, I think Oda has even like said in interviews like, oh yeah, I've got some big things coming for Kid. I've got some big story stuff ready for his journey. So everyone was expecting him to be like a Whitebeard level like rival against like Luffy, just kind of like redoing the Roger Whitebeard rivalry. Not so much, but yeah, it really helped establish just the tension that we're going forward with. And I think other than seeing Shanks use the divine sovereignty, I think was the name of the attack, or just the Roger attack, we also got to see him use future sight, and like the most advanced future sight we've seen. He was able to see 10 seconds into the future, and with that he was able to tell that Kid almost wiped out his almost entire fleet, like, which means Kid has definitely come a long way too. Like before, he was struggling to do even one of those like laser attacks against Big Mom, who she just took it because she's a tank. But yeah, it just I loved like Shanks. You know, are they healed from Wano? Is this okay? Like just watching like two captains preparing for naval battle just felt like the most piratey One Piece has been in a long time. It was very satisfying to watch that all play together. But yeah, I think that's the most advanced version of observation hockey that we've seen so far in this series. And it's just, you know, raising the excitement levels for if Shanks and Luffy clash, what that's going to look like. Because it's an established threat now, and especially with Shanks, just them getting the poneglyphs handed to them, essentially, like it's oh man. But yeah, one of my notes. Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, a few things I want to add.
Yeah,
it's interesting. So I think the name of the attack is Divine Erasure or something like that, which has a meaning of sort of going against the gods, stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, of course, the big theme of the series. And when the One Piece Red movie came out last year,
don't remind me.
There was a booklet that was distributed in Japanese movie theaters, where Oda brought a few things about Shanks, his crew. Some of them were misleading, he said later. And this booklet revealed that Shanks was known as the observation haki killer, which many people took as he was very good in fighting against people who used observation haki. Right?
Yeah, this is true.
Now we learn that it's the other way around. It kills you with observation haki, basically. And and also the final, the funny side of the chapter is that there was a lot of speculation about Shanks' Grand Fleet, because we never saw it, and Oda confirmed that it existed just a few volumes ago. I think it was volume 101 in the SBS, and then now we see that it's the weakest. Like, it's a bunch of weak pirate crews that basically only survive because Shanks protects them, which will be interesting going on, because this could be a sort of a weakness that people like Blackbeard could easily take advantage of.
That's true. But at the same time, it kind of also links into what Shanks established in the very beginning of the series is, I don't care if you throw beer at me, hit me, or spit on me. If you mess with one of my friends, even if it is justified, that's not okay. And so it is an interesting idea that he has so many people that he is like protecting. And if you mess with one of them, then you're going to have Shanks in your face taking you out in one attack. And yeah, compared to like Luffy's like Straw Hat Fleet, a lot more commendable, a lot more on that. It's almost I would love to see Shanks's crew do some more in the canon. They did plenty in One Piece Red, which isn't canon, but it was one of my favorite bits of that movie, actually, is they're just standing there while hundreds of people are punching them, and they're just so strong that it's literally just not doing anything against them. I would love to see that in the canon, because if Shanks is really the only one that is like that strong, some dumb devil fruit could trap him or something like that, and then his whole fleet would just be useless at that point, which is a little
no. I think the crew is pretty strong.
I hope
like
so.
the red hair pirates are strong, but the rest of the fleet is a bunch of old people.
A frog man and a man whose teeth can't stay in there. If you're wondering, I know this is a series Carlisle hasn't gotten into, but we'll be hearing a lot more from him on My Hero and JoJo later. Highly recommend some One Piece, though. I'm sorry that we're spoiling all this for you, man. But,
it just doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Last time I saw any One Piece was like Thriller Bark, so it's a long time.
Oh, that was a good one too. Yeah, you have a lot of good stuff ahead of you. Another thing I really enjoyed, Dorian Bragi showing back up, the two giants, of course. One thing I can complain about, though, was the official translation kind of I guess more accurately defined their line, but I enjoyed the fan translation this week on they almost quoted Shanks from the first episode when Luffy was kidnapped in the first episode and by those other pirates. I think Higama the bear. I'm blown away. I remember that name, but it was one of those things where they're holding a gun at Shanks, and then the big guy on Shanks' crew shot him and said, if you're going to point a gun at somebody, you better be prepared to face the consequences. Fan translation used that line with the two giants using that attack at the end, and I loved it. Brilliant callback from 1,078 chapters ago. But the official translation wasn't quite that, and I was a little bummed to see that. But
I was also, this I was probably dumb for not making the connection earlier, but the attack that Dorian Bragi used is very similar to the one that Kaido and Big Mom use in Wano.
Yeah.
The one that the giants use is called land, like warrior country sovereignty, right? While the one the Kaido and Big Mom used was called sea. It's like sea sovereignty. That's how you say that. Very hard word, very difficult word. And so it's actually what Kaido and Big Mom did was sort of a callback to the giants' attack. Yeah, because we saw Dorian Bragi first, and they used this same attack with the giant fish that was blocking the island.
I think it was the fish who made poops so large that they turned into islands, and that's the island that Dorian Bragi had been fighting on the entire time. For 100 years, they fought on a big pile of shit. So, oh man, I love One Piece. But yeah, that was the biggest, most powerful attack we've seen in the series that Zoro handled by himself. Kind of a big deal. But yeah, getting to see these like sovereignty attacks are just like the highest caliber destructive sort of things out there. And I think it's kind of odd that, we've seen almost like three separate people, three separate attacks use the sovereignty sort of thing. Actually, four now, I guess. We got Dory Bragi, Shanks, Kaido Big Mom, and Roger. So I almost wonder if it's just something that they eventually, people in One Piece get to, where they're like, oh, this is a big attack, I'm going to call it sovereignty something.
I'm going to check the official name of Shanks' attack in this chapter.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Go over my notes while you're doing that and see if I missed anything. Shanks doing 10 seconds ahead observation hockey. So cool. I have to say it again.
It's called Divine Departure. It's different.
Okay.
It's a whole other thing. This is the one that Roger used.
Okay. So I was
And
wrong there.
the combo attack, I think we only saw it done by the Giants and by Kaido and Big Mom.
Yeah. Which are giants
Oh,
in their
and
own
one
right.
by Big Mom. Oh, and one was done by Big Mom alone, but that's because there is this huge unexplained connection between Big Mom and the Giants. Because we know that she grew up on the orphanage on Elbaf, and then she looks like a giant, and then she one of the races that she was not able to acquire for her country was giants. So this is one of the things that will never get explained in the manga. It's going to be in a footnote somewhere in the future.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I've always assumed that she was just part giant, especially with her flashback and stuff. But now I think about it, I think it originally started with like her parents dumping her off on Elbath because she was such a problem child. And she's just obviously a very big lady. Some would say she is a big mom. I don't know. Any final thoughts on this chapter this week? Because that's about all the notes I had on it. We didn't get to talk about the last chapter, which we did see the establishment of Neo-Mads, which I think was something that you even anticipated in some previous podcasts, Francesco. That's bad news for the world. I in the previous cover story, they kind of gave us the idea that maybe they were going to go to Egghead to get revenge against Vegapunk. But with them establishing Neo-Mads, I almost think that they're going to just be like, we're just going to concentrate on making big, scary weapons and stuff that the government might want. So I don't know if we're going to get Germa showing up at Egghead, but it is a scary possibility on where that could go.
Yeah, but again, we go back to what I was saying in the beginning, that these are characters that I don't think there's gonna be room for them.
No,
so I don't know. We'll see. It's cool. I hope they stop to pick up. I hope they stop to pick up Queen too, because he's the coolest of the bunch, and
absolutely.
I want him back dancing and doing his silly things.
I think Queen was already pretty cool, but I think the anime just like really, really solidified him being the coolest of the Beast Pirates. I'd say I miss him more than Kaido. Kaido is just represented the big brick wall that Luffy and co had to overcome, while Queen was just a very memorable character and just very, very likable. But yeah, I hope King and Queen are okay after having to take on that Admiral. Things didn't seem very good for them. But we've got a couple lingering threads on Wano with Big Mom and Kaido. Are they just gone forever? King and Queen, it's the same thing. Are they just gone forever? Maybe that'll be the next cover story. Hopefully, we can hope. But I think that'll about wrap up our chat on One Piece this week. Please let us know in the comments if there's anything that you think that we missed that you want to talk about. I would also love to hear your favorite bits of One Piece's latest chapters. I'm not sure if it's on break next week. I haven't kept track, unfortunately, on that. But we'll definitely be talking about 1080 when that comes back. Thanks for chatting about One Piece today, Francesco. I've been very anxious to talk about it. So,
I'll hang around a bit for the rest of the show. Then I'll silently leave like a true ninja from the
man,
from a random village.
Yeah. Now you're talking my Naruto language, not Boruto, Naruto.
No, never.
No. If you stick around, I think we'll do some plugs at the end too. But I hope you have some stuff to say about My Hero and JoJo as well. I know you're a fan of those as well. So, I think we'll go ahead and move into My Hero Academia chat for 383, titled Meek Spirits. The My Hero Academia's been on break last couple weeks. I heard Horikoshi wasn't feeling very well, so glad to see that he's feeling well enough to get back and deliver some amazing panels in
Yeah.
this chapter. Um, I won't get into it right away, but it ended with probably one of the best panels I've seen from the series in a long time, and I don't know, this guy Horikoshi is one of those talents that just he's able to draw something so like stunningly awesome and complex that it's just so fun to like stare at for a very long time, which is something a lot of series also do, just a lot more sparingly. I there's so many times that I'm staring at the panel and then the anime comes out and I was like, oh, that's not nearly as epic or as cool, like with the Dark Deku stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen some screenshots of it, and I hear that they did pretty well with it, but it's just like the menacing shadows of like
Yeah.
Deku like walking away while the black whip strands are coming off of him. Just it looks so cool, and it's something that the anime couldn't really capture. But
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. There's a couple things, and the Dark Deku costume is definitely one of them, where the level of detail is just unattainable for an anime. You would have
yeah,
to be doing it as a movie to get it to look like that. And
yeah.
yeah, they did as well as they could do, and it looks just fine. But it definitely does look cooler in the manga, which is it's always an unusual thing to say sometimes. But
Right.
it yeah, there's no question.
Absolutely. We're talking about Deku and him being looking all cool and stuff, but we had no Deku in this chapter.
No, we did
We
not.
kind of have some other things to clean up before we get back to Deku versus Shigaraki, the ultimate final question mark battle. But we did get back into we had a bit of a flashback because the last chapter that we got to, All for One was wrecking a bunch of shit, and then Giga Machina shows up, and you're just like, that's the worst thing that the heroes need right now. Until he started attacking All for One. And then it's revealed that they're using Shizo's Cork. I might be saying his name wrong. I apologize. Um, but to fake All for One's voice to control Gigi Machina, which is perfect plan.
Yeah, very clever.
Very clever. And that's something that's really coming together, I think, in a lot of or a lot of the threads that are all coming together in this series right now, that I almost think we'll enjoy a lot more in hindsight. Because right now it just kind of feels like, of course, that's what happened. Like it all just, I don't know. I'd almost rather this happen than the whole Game of Thrones. Like, oh, we needed to subvert expectations. It's just like, well, yeah, you're subverting expectations on what good story is. So of course people aren't suspecting you to do the stupid thing.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, we snapped back to kind of a flashback to how they attained Gigamachia, and it wasn't quite as straightforward and as simple as we thought. It wasn't just Gigamachia sitting in there and the Shizo shows up and he's just like, "Oh, I'm all for one. Oh, what do you want?" It was a lot more desperate than that. It seemed like the area where we saw Midnight's Killer, Red Riot, and Ashido was actually the place that was housing Gigamachia.
yeah,
And that I'm not sure if we knew that previously or I just didn't remember. But that kind of really helps me, especially previously when we snapped to that area. I was just like, "What? Why are we here? We're going from like big Shigaraki battle to All for One to like, oh hey, this is the guy who killed Midnight, and here's a couple students." And you're like, that seems kind of random, like. Uh, but this chapter really helped solidify why that was so important. And again, it's one of those things that I think is why this series is going to be a lot more enjoyable once it's all out and we can like,
yeah.
instead of being week to week to week, you can enjoy the whole thing. And I think it'll flow a lot better personally. um, but yeah, we got to see Midnight's Killer, and he kind of got taken care of in this one chapter, it felt like. And the return of the blob villain that took
Yeah, the
Bakugo in the beginning.
sludge villain from the very beginning.
Yeah, bringing that all back. Really, the only villain I'm still like will legitimately disappointed if they don't show up, and if we don't get the rematch between Red Riot and the big bruiser guy that him and Fat Gum had to fight.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that was one of my favorite moments. I love Red Riot. I wish that there was more screen time with him, especially because his voice actor is just Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho. He hasn't really changed his voice much. It's just anytime I hear it, I was like, oh shit, that's Yusuke.
My wife's favorite character as well.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Yeah, she loves Kirishima.
Oh, she's got good taste. So, getting to see a little bit more of him, but not to see him do a whole lot, unfortunately. But I would love to see a rematch between him and the guy who just had the ridiculously powerful punches. It would give Red Riot an opportunity to show that he has, improved enough to be able to take those without being completely devastated like he was in that fight. I'm hoping we get that, but my hopes are not high. We've got a lot of other big things to cover. But I would have never guessed that slime sludge monster guy was going to come back.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, it was a really interesting way to do it too. But the sludge guy said something that I was a little confused on. You might be able to help clear it up for me, but let me see. I've got it in my notes here. Just make sure I don't screw it up. I couldn't decide what to call him, so in my notes it went from being blobby villain to glomp villain, or whatever you want to call him. But glomp villain talking about hiding in some plucky middle school kid. I was wondering
Pretty
if he
sure
was
he's referring to Bakugo specifically.
yeah, but that happened so long ago, and is that revealing that this plan has been in place all the way since then? Do you think Glomp Villain was possibly trying to find a high school student to take over?
I don't think so, because he was just he seemed like he had already been beaten up, and he was just kind of looking for a place to lay low when he took over Bakugo. So I don't think it was part of the big plan or anything, but I think he probably was in Tartarus and got out, and he's just working with them now, I suppose.
Yeah, that
He's
would be
clearly involved in the plan. It's not like he's
Yeah.
just doing his own thing this time.
Right. Well, I was thinking he was either referring to Bakugo, or I was wondering if he was referring to another student we don't know about, spying, having a spy in the school. And then it goes to, Ioma, laser naval laser boy. And I was just like, I don't remember him taking over him at any point. So it kind of was making me think, is there another spy we don't know about? But that would feel kind of lame, honestly, if they're like, oh, there's another spy. We've done that. We've been there. We've seen what happens when that does it. But I don't know. That might be an interesting Screen Rant article. If Sludge Guy has been in this plan for so long, and that'd kind of give a real reason why he took over Bakugo, or why he was trying to take over a student. Because if I remember correctly, he tried to take over Deku first, and then All Might saved him.
Yeah.
And then that's how All Might and Deku met. And then he, finds Bakugo, and one of the coolest, parts of the whole series is how it all started and stuff like that, with Deku saving Bakugo and all that. So yeah, I don't know. The appearance of the sludge guy was definitely very interesting, unexpected, and it has the potential to tie up even more things if it was all planned. But it totally makes sense if he was just trying to find refuge in a teenage boy. Oh, I hate that sentence.
Yeah.
But another bit about this chapter that I really enjoyed. Ashido has always been kind of one of those characters that just always felt like a background character to me.
Yeah. She's sidelined a lot.
Very sidelined. But I have really always enjoyed the dynamic between her and I'll just say Red Riot. Because they seem to have some sort of, I don't know, at least with Kirishima, he seems to have a crush on her. And so it's always really cute whenever they kind of have a little moment, a glimpse into how much he respects her and stuff like that. And him straight up saying you have nothing to apologize for. You've always been my hero. It was just my heart. Oh, I loved that. I wish that she would reciprocate it a little bit, like at least react with like, oh my god, I've always felt the same about you, and oh man, that'd be great. That would be a great thread that I wish that we could have, had established previously in the series a little bit more. That's something I think the anime has done a pretty good job with. Going back to that amazing moment in the overhaul arc with Kirishima's fight with Fight Gum and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but the Punchy Man, we'll call him Punchy Man. We kind of got some like more background into like Ashido and Kirishima's relationship and how he's always like looked up to her and thought, she's the most talented and just naturally awesome and good looking and all that stuff for Kirishima.
I love Mina. She's great.
Yeah. It's again one of those characters I wish we spent more time with. But I think this arc has done a really good job of like delivering these moments for these students. These moments we've been waiting for, for them to rise up and that sort of thing. This chapter even established that Gigi Machina represents like emotional scarring for so many people, especially after their sort of failed attempt to subdue him during the war arc that the anime recently covered.
Yeah.
But I mean, she even had past trauma with Gigi Machina before that.
Yeah.
And so her like rising up and melting his hand and doing all that was just very satisfying and cool. And I think this final arc is delivering that pretty well for a lot of characters. How would you rank this moment for her compared to like other moments we've had with, students rising up and coming to the occasion?
Yeah, I do like this moment for sure. It's definitely something I wanted, especially having just seen it in the anime, with her trying to take down Gigantomachia and freezing up a little bit, and so it was a little overdue for her to get a redemption on that front, I think. So I was definitely glad to see that. In terms of ranking it compared to some of the other characters, um, I would say she's doing better than Coda. Not quite up there with some of the other characters, like Tokoyami. That was very cool. He's obviously had a really cool little spotlight here, still going on technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the students, I don't think she's doing that bad. There have been other characters who didn't really get any. Jiro didn't really get a good moment. She got her little ear thing cut off, and that was it.
Yeah, she blasted all for one with a sound wave for a little bit, but that is starting to feel less and less cool after especially Tokiyami Ragnarok punch all for one into the ground. Like that was, oh man. And I mean, as you said, that's still going. And that's actually the best like segue into gotta talk about that panel.
Yeah.
I mean, we take that moment of showing how we got Gigi Machina to this bit, and then we snap to All for One holding back Mount Lady's attack, which by the way that was a note I brought up too. One of those things where the anime did something so cool that the manga is just like, oh man, we got to put that in there. Was Mount Lady's like combo attack in the anime? It was with a cement toss, but he created like a big cement staff and she just like grabbed it and used it. Really cool move that I don't believe happened in the manga during the war arc.
She just punched it. She just punched the ice, and so we smashed it with the bat in the anime. And obviously, we thought that was cool enough to come back and do a big old wrench here.
Yeah. Just I think Mount Lady's kind of one of those abilities where you're just like, oh, you grow big. Okay, well, that's okay, I guess. We have some much more interesting powers, but when you combine it with other abilities, it's just has the potential for these moments where you're just like, oh, that's brutal and cool. So I'm glad that we're bringing her into the fold. And I mean, she's like one of the top heroes, if I remember correctly. So again, getting to spend more time with characters that we have not had previous time with. But we got All for One blocking that attack, Gigi Machina throwing a continent at him, essentially. Ragnarok punch coming in, wind boy is doing his thing. Just yeah, I almost think, if Horikoshi wasn't actually sick and he's just like, I just have a really sick panel, I need more time to draw. Like, totally okay, man. You take the time you want if that's the kind of stuff you're going to be putting out, because that was almost like poster level like panel. There's
It
some
really
panels that
is.
come out that you're just like, that's so cool. I want to stare at that every day. But yeah, final panels of that under, the big, really impressive one. Seems like he's struggling. And then we have some random helicopters showing up. Not sure what that's kind of teasing, but yeah, we're no longer on break on it. So we'll be finding out hopefully next week. But
Yeah.
now that they've closed up the Kirishima Ashido location thread, everything is converging and getting more narrow and distinct. Like, they're running out of places to cover except for the big battles. So very exciting time for My Hero Academia. I think after this chapter, it was, one of the more exciting cliffhangers that got me excited for My Hero again. And this arc has been kind of going back and forth on that. Where you finish a chapter and you're just like, all right, well, I guess that things happened. And then this chapter is like, holy shit, I can't wait to see what happens next. So, but any final thoughts on this chapter of My Hero Academia, man, that you wanted to get through?
Yeah, no, it just a really, really cool chapter. It's always nice when we're off for a couple weeks and then we come back with a real banger like this one. So
Absolutely. Well, before we move into JoJo, we talked a little bit off screen about the My Hero anime, which just wrapped up its sixth season. I am a few episodes behind. I need to catch up on the Dark Deku stuff, but I did watch the War arc. But I've been hearing they did a great job with the Dark Deku stuff. I know Francesco, I'm not sure if you are all the way caught up on it too, but I thought we could use this opportunity if you guys want to touch about the anime.
I'm only missing. I'm only missing the final episode. I haven't watched it yet, but of course I know what it's about, and I've been very vocal about my appreciation for of My Hero Academia, and especially for the last bunch of episodes. I mean, every single episode has been stellar, but maybe because the source of this final part was great, the anime has been absolutely incredible. And I was just now writing about the upcoming season 7, and I think, boy, the bar is set so high. Wow.
Yeah, I was talking to Carlisle before we started recording on how I was expecting them to do the Star and Stripe battle. Excuse me. Possibly at the very end of the season, but it sounds like that's how they want to start the next season. And oh boy, what a way to start the next season. Carlisle, what how did you think that they adapted the last few episodes and stuff? What were your thoughts on season 6?
Season 6 was amazing. It was all the stuff that definitely had been waiting for as far as My Hero Academia is concerned. This is the first stuff that I had because I started watching the anime first and only went back to the manga later. So this was the first stuff that was like, I've seen this in the manga for a long time now, and here it is finally getting adapted. So it was very cool to see it all brought to life like that. They handled the character aspect well. The music really enhanced a lot of the scenes. I know you had some strong opinions about that with the most, well, not the most recent episode, but the one before that where all the students were fighting with Deku. The music in that episode in particular, but it added a lot to be able to see it. I feel like there were a couple things even that I had kind of just been like, I'm not sure about that, and then finally the anime cleared it up. Like her weird, apparently Lady Nagant had some weird speaker bullets. She just had little speakers embedded in the bullets so she could talk to Deku. It's like, oh, that's how we were doing it. Okay.
Interesting.
I just thought we were doing anime logic, but she set up little speakers so she could talk to him. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just like you'd have to invent a speaker that could withstand the velocity and the impact a bullet makes. It's wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, excuse me. I'm very anxious to catch up, especially to watch that fight and the fight of the students trying to stop Deku. Um, of what I've seen, I've watched up to Deku's rematch against Muscular, which
Which
very
was
cool.
pretty great too.
That was great. um, I think overall, I really enjoyed War Arc is probably my favorite arc of the entire series so far. Just Shigaraki waking up and the devastation and them just, so desperately just trying to hold him back was really cool. I really, really was disappointed. One thing I was really disappointed with was Lemillion's entrance. That was one of my favorite bits in the manga because he's probably one of my favorite characters of the whole series. And if I remember correctly, the manga kind of like teased like, "Oh no, somebody helped. Who was that?" And then like the first time you see him actually come back because we didn't know he had been healed or anything like that. In our brains, he's still off to the side with no powers. When things are most desperate, you see his little face pop up out of the ground, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" It's like seeing one of my best friends I hadn't seen in years come back. It was really really satisfying, and I was a little disappointed with how the anime handled it. Um, but I'm very excited and glad to hear that the episodes I haven't seen have not disappointed with delivering those sorts of moments. So thanks for getting me more excited to watch more My Hero Academia, guys. Um, but yeah, I think that's about all I've got on My Hero Academia 383 and the anime finale right now. Once I catch up on the anime, I might have some more things to say about it, but we'll definitely be talking My Hero Academia 384 when that comes out next week. Hopefully we get some more All for One, or maybe we'll snap over to what Deku's up to. Or maybe it'll be a Bakugo censored chapter. Who centered chapter? Who knows at this point?
Yeah.
But I think that'll do it for My Hero Academia. I think we can go ahead and move into a adventure of the bizarre sort. JoJo Lands Chapter 2. This one came out a little more than a week ago. I apologize for us being a little late on it, but a great chapter. I think Chapter 1, as somebody who's pretty much, I've only watched JoJo anime. I'm really enjoying part 6 right now with Jolene, but I haven't read 7 and 8. So this is my first time like reading JoJo as it's coming out, and very, very excited to be able to do that with some friends like you guys. Give us some extra context that I'm totally missing out on and stuff like that. But the first chapter of JoJo Part 9, JoJoLands, really established everything very well. I thought it was a fantastic first chapter to a manga series. We were introduced to Jodio, Dragana, Dragana's his sister's name, and they're in Hawaii. They're kind of a crime syndicate, not so much a syndicate, but just a little crime group that is trying to get rich and stuff like that. Just all very well established within 40 some pages. And this one really kind of built it out, I thought. We spent some time with Joe Dio getting caught by a DEA agent. It seems so obvious as we're reading it. And even he thought it was kind of fishy, which is why I was really surprised that he let it get as crazy as it did. I was not thinking that he was going to fall for this and all that, but I don't know, it kind of revealed a little bit something about his character. Maybe that's something that's going to be important later on, is how he might be a little bit too trusting. But as soon as that's established, then we get this kind of weird thing saying like, "Oh, by the way, I took a psychological test and I guess I'm a psychopath. I have antisocial," I wrote it down, antisocial personality disorder, which he thinks just makes him a psychopath. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I'm not sure if that necessarily means that you're a psychopath, but um, maybe that was just supposed to be like us rationalizing why he was willing to do some sort of attack that was so much brutal. But stand update. JoDio's stand update titled November Rain. It seems like he can control like the weight of moisture is the way I was reading it. What were your guys' takes on JoDio's stand ability in this chapter?
Yeah, it's not quite clear exactly what all he can do with this yet. Because it seemed like it might be a little bit acidic in the first chapter, and it doesn't quite seem like that's the case now. So it's interesting. What exactly does this stand do? Because we've had some confusing ones before. It was not very clear when Giorno showed up what his stand did. For example, that was a very confusing one. He didn't even know.
Still is. Yeah.
It wasn't clear at the end. It wasn't clear at the end of the series.
Yeah, I've heard
every week, but
yeah, I've heard with the full context of that part, still doesn't clear up what that guy's abilities were. As I was saying too, I'm in part 6 right now with JoLands, and her like string ability seems to be quite versatile at this point.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of just does whatever they need it to do at that point. But that's what I've always really enjoyed about Araki's writing, mostly in moments of like Giordano. Sorry, I'm not saying that correctly. It was just kind of, consistently evolving to whatever they needed it to be. But whenever it's like well established, and then you get to see them come up with intelligent ways to like use it to get out of situations, something that's really enjoyable, especially when we have a good concept of how it works, compared to part 5's. But we got to see him use this new ability against the same scumbag cop that we met in chapter 1. Araki's just making it so that cop is just completely irredeemable. So I don't think that cop is done suffering in this series yet. I think he'll have a part to play later, and we'll probably just get obliterated because it's one of those characters that's just like, you're a piece of shit. I can't wait for you to disappear. So we'll see how that evolves. That was kind of the first half of the chapter. And then we get, together with the other characters that we've kind of met. They're getting together for a job. Apparently there is a rich Japanese man in town who is in a really nice place by himself. And they figure, hey, what could be so hard about this? Let's go rob this guy. We got some amazing panels of Cruising USA, essentially. We had all of them hop in a car, and I just really enjoyed like Araki's way of drawing, like just driving through the countryside and stuff like that. It just felt like a nice, relaxing, amazing panel work and stuff like that. And then we get to the house. We get to see some new stand abilities, and it's revealed who the Japanese man is that we're robbing. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that, because I have seen part 4, but I don't have any further context on more of this guy's story. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think, well, I'll go first, and because I'm the expert, I think, on part 4, but it was my favorite one. But then Carlisle has been following all the side stories a lot more than me, so he surely knows more. So Rohan is this very popular character from part 4, which is obviously clearly inspired by Araki himself, and you can really tell he has a lot of fun whenever he's writing Rohan, because it can basically, it's almost like a version of Araki that he cannot show to the world, like the arrogant, artist who is so good that everybody has to just kneel in front of him. When from everything you know about Araki, he's such a nice guy, and so I think it's really funny. And of course, Rohan was the protagonist of many side stories that were collected in several books of short stories. I think there is also the now the live action of Rohan at the Louvre is coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the screenshot, and I can say I wasn't too impressed. I was just like, I think Rohan would be more flashy than this character.
Yeah. And these are all like small, mystery stories, like old stories, that usually have nothing to do with stands and things like that. It's just, Rohan happening in the bizarre things of life, ghosts and creepy stories and stuff like that, which Araki is obviously a fan of. Yeah. And what you youngsters would call creepy pasta and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually pretty old, I think, as a term, right? I mean, it was 2 years ago. But yeah,
I think that's right. A lot of the Rohan stories have that creepypasta vibe to them.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, it's interesting because this is the first character from the universe skip, however you want to call what happens at the end of between part 6 and part 7, basically, because everybody knows that 7, 8, and 9 are taking place in another universe. Oh, well, guess you know that at least.
Yeah.
No?
It's been hard to avoid that.
Yeah.
Separate continuity. That's all.
Yeah. So, and that's the first. I mean, we've had characters who had the same names of characters from the previous universe, but they never looked the same, right? So, Carly,
even Kara looked very different.
Yeah, so it is the first guy who he basically was just transferred from the previous universe to this one. Having said that, this is probably what we will be talking about for the next chapter, right? Because it's just at the end, so we don't have a lot to go about. What I really liked about this chapter is that it really, really establishes, it really sort of further, reinforces what was established, what was teased in the first chapter, that JoJo is a very terrible person. Like in chapter 1, he was giving drugs to a kid in his school, but then this kid is also, it's also part of this gang. So it sort of had this, and he talks a lot about his mom, how he's doing it for his mom, and so you could tell he was a very different character from the other JoJos. But in this chapter, he's doing a drug deal with a random person on the street. He's a drug dealer. He beats up the cops. There's almost no redeeming qualities. And that's very interesting. I find it really, really interesting. I think that this will not be the line that Araki will follow, because, as you said, Jason, you were surprised that JoJo actually fell. He believed the girl, right? The woman, sorry, who is a DEA agent, right? And you were surprised that he believed her. And if he also has a very shocked after, like they spring the trap. And he's usually a very, from this chapter, it looks like a very calm and collected guy. So seeing him have that shocked reaction, it means that he really trusted the woman when she said she was not a cop, which means I think he has still a little of that, Joestar purity of heart, believing in people and all of that. So I think this will come back into play in the future, but I'm super impressed from this part 9. I mean, it's a great, very different feeling from everything else we've seen, and I love it. Can't wait for the next chapter, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Carla, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on it too, but I'll just add real quick that the whole Rohan thing, especially if this is the first time that we've seen somebody from the previous continuity unchanged, I'm wondering if that will, connect this part to all the other previous parts through Rohan, like finding out how he got through. You guys, of course, know more details about what happened. I'm not there yet, but on how he possibly got to the other side of this huge change, unchanged or unscathed. Um, and just to add a little extra context, any refresher for anybody, but Rohan is a mangaka from Part 4 who has this ability, and this is an ability that might have changed in the side stories and stuff, because Araki kind of changes abilities sometimes, but he almost like can open up your mind to be a manga, and he can write and change like your memories or abilities. I think even in Part 5, it's just like, oh, and he can also write like, you're fluent in this language, and you're like, oh man, I now know this language. Like, so it's almost like the Matrix, where he can just give you this ability. It's like, oh, I know kung fu now. But we'll see if that ability has changed, or if that is possibly what got him to this side of the universe, or rechange of the continuity. We'll see, but I think it's kind of exciting. This might be the portal to linking it to all the previous JoJo stories.
I'm calling it now, and I think the explanation will be that in every universe, Rohan is always Rohan. So that's gonna be it. That's gonna be no other explanation. Like it's just himself.
Yeah, I forget. I think the latest Doctor Strange movie had a character like that, who's like just always that character in all the multiverses. The little girl, I can't think of the character's name, but yeah, that'd be an interesting idea. Just like there's Rohan is always Rohan in all of the continuities. That'd be pretty interesting. But Carlisle, especially if you've got like the info on Rohan's like side stories and stuff, because I think Netflix even has like,
yeah, they animated a couple.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like Rohan is, such a well-liked character that he's even had his own spin-off series, anime and manga storylines and stuff like that. So it sounds like you have a lot more information on Rohan than I think a lot of people know about.
Yeah, a lot of these Rohan stories are only getting translated for the first time in the past year or so officially.
Oh, wow.
So there really haven't been a lot of opportunities for people who, and I mean, they're still translating some of the regular JoJo too.
Yeah.
Just because they've never brought it over before. But with a lot of these Rohan stories, it's usually about him. And occasionally there's cameos from other Part 4 characters, but it's usually just him by himself. And something very strange happens. It often is not stand related. Usually it's some kind of other monster, and everything that comes from Rohan, he kind of narrates it. So you always also have this like unreliable narrator thing. Like, how much are you really telling us the truth, Rohan? I don't know. So there's always that kind of interesting element to some of these, and there's one of the stories that he doesn't even appear in at all. He just tells it, and it's like, is this even a true story, or is this like his next manga? Who knows?
Oh, cool.
But it's interesting now because it's like we wrote some. He wrote like 2 or 3 chapters of Rohan last year, and it's like, are those now? Now we have to go like, are those with the Part 6 or Part 4 Rohan, or are those for the new Rohan? And we didn't know that we were getting introduced to the new Rohan early,
Mm-hmm.
So there's all that to consider too.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where as soon as we heard like, oh yeah, it's some strange Japanese man, some rich Japanese guy, we're like, okay, what's the most interesting way that this could, it's not just going to be some random rich Japanese guy, because that, would be kind of an odd story. Yeah. So very excited to see how this all connects.
For Part 8, they had there's a family, the family that that JoJo belongs to is. They run a fruit parlor, and so they export and import fruit and stuff. And so I thought for sure that it was going to be one of them. And I was not expecting Rohan at all, but Rohan was the best thing that I could have turned the page and seen. It makes so much sense. It's perfect.
Oh boy, I wish I could have. Yeah, I could imagine how exciting that would be, especially if you're all caught up on all that sort of stuff. Because for me, it was definitely, I liked Rohan. Part 4 was amazing and excellent. One of the best parts of the whole series, in my opinion. Um, and it's, I'm very glad that it was him and not like a part 7 or 8 character, because I would have had no like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, that's kind of cool, I guess. But uh, yeah, I think the only thing that would have been more interesting if it was like a young Joseph for me, because that would have been hard to explain. But I just love Joseph so much. Um, but yeah, we also got introduced to a new character. Oh boy, I think I got his name. Not Red Riot. um, oh boy, but he has a very interesting stand that he can't control. Really, somebody else needs to ask for it to be activated, essentially. Um, and it's just a really weird power that seems very odd now, but I'm sure Araki has some brilliant fight scene or half a dozen brilliant fight scenes that this ability is going to be important to. Um, but they created like a double of the security camera, so then the double creates a unreliable version, so that instantly negates the reliable version. um, really interesting. I think that's something, as a new JoJo fan within the last few years, that's something I get a lot of joy whenever they introduce like these new powers and how they work, and how it's going to play later on into the series. um, but yeah, just another really solid chapter. Building up more new characters, introducing the Rohan connection. It's getting me very excited for the next chapter. But oh, the new guy's name is Usagi Aloha. I might be saying that incorrectly. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's kind of my notes on it. Did you guys have anything else on this chapter that you wanted to bring up? Otherwise, we might be shutting it or closing it up.
Yeah. No, I think that's most of it. It really is just Rohan was so big that
Yeah.
everything else just fell by the wayside as soon as he showed up.
Yeah. It was definitely like a pretty fun chapter. It was like, oh, this is relaxing, this is cool. And then that's that bombshell, just the very final pages. You're just like, this changes everything. um but yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. That's been our discussion on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 9, JoJo Lands Chapter 2. We'll definitely be talking about it again next time. But thank you guys so much for adding some extra context and helping that one make a little bit more sense for me. But yeah, I think we'll go ahead and move into some plugs and recommendations. Jason Hahn, writer for Screen Rants, got some very exciting game previews, reviews, and anime manga stuff coming out. I also stream on Twitch on most Tuesdays and Fridays. You can find me TheHonzy, one word. I like to talk about video game news, and I'll usually stream some cool games. I just started playing The Last of Us Part 2 for the first time. Very dramatic. I've only played the first hour and a half or 2 hours, so I haven't gotten to a big, dramatic, sad part yet. But it's been a very enjoyable experience. Very lovely characters. Everyone's really nice. And I also have a YouTube channel called Honzy and Friends. Let's play videos, just playing with friends. I actually, newest episodes of Sonic Frontiers with Screen Rant's very own Sonic lore expert, Stephen Blackburn. We've been playing the newest Sonic game and really just listening to him nerd out about a bunch of really, really strange Sonic the Hedgehog storylines. So check that out if that sounds entertaining to you. But please subscribe to this channel as well. I'm giving you a whole list of things to subscribe to. Subscribe to this one and Hansi and Friends on YouTube. Would really appreciate it. But Carlisle, how is your progress on Elven Revenue Service going, man?
It's going pretty good. I got my sixth CG in, so I've got one CG for each character now, so that's great.
Oh, cool.
We're working on a little bug that has been giving me some problems, and but as soon as that is straightened out, we're going to be trying to get it listed on Steam. So we're about at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everything I've seen on it, I have no doubt that it will be on Steam. I think you guys are doing a great job, especially seeing some other graphic novels coming, or visual novels coming out. I'm just like, oh man, Carlisle's is way better than this one. This is going to go places. So, yeah, definitely check out Elven Revenue Service, and you can get updates. What was the Twitter handle on that, buddy?
It's at Elven Revenue on Twitter. Updates have been sporadic, but that's mostly just because I'm not really sure what to say on the update front, because it's a lot of stuff that I can't really, when you're doing the writing parts, you can't really talk about what you're doing. So it's just like, unless you want a word count update, I don't know what to say.
Let us know if you want word count updates. He'll be happy to oblige if you'd like those. And any plugs, or other than Elven Revenue Service, any other recommendations today, bud?
Trigun Stampede just wrapped up its first season. If you haven't watched Trigun Stampede, go watch it.
I love
was
it.
Definitely one of the best anime of this season, and there's been some pretty good stuff so far this season, so that's saying something.
Yeah, speaking of Trigun Stampede, the new CG anime. Yeah, what you got?
That's interesting, because I stopped watching halfway because I was I wasn't super like roped in, and so I guess I'll give it another chance.
Boy, when it hit about episode 6 or whatever, and things got moving very quickly, people were very worried, because they're like, are they going to try and rush it all in one season? Are they really going to try and do it all now? But no, they were just really, it just really started moving.
Yeah, I've been loving it too. I'm a huge fan of the original Madhouse anime from the 90s. And for me, honestly, like episode 1, I was just like, oh, that was satisfying and fun and great. I'm only a couple episodes behind the newest one, but I've been really enjoying it. I think the animation's great and the characters are cool. I was actually wrote a new one quick recommendation from me. I've started getting into Hajime no Ippo for the very first time. And that was actually the guy who directed the Madhouse 90s Trigun anime. Right after he finished that, he started Hajime no Ippo. So if you like the 90s Trigun anime series, I highly recommend Hajime no Ippo. Inspirational, fantastic shonen with some of the best pacing I've experienced in an anime. There's definitely some jokes in there that don't hold up quite as well, but it's very, very enjoyable, very intense, great characters and all that stuff. Yeah, Francesco, you got any plugs or recommendations today, buddy?
Nothing really to plug. I mean, I'm only working on growing our anime and manga section on Screen Rant, so I just want to tell everyone to go and check us out. We have everything you want. We also have lists now. We have news, we have features, we have reviews, and we cover a lot of topics that other channels, other websites don't cover. So just I hope that more and more people will be interested in our content. And besides that, recommendations. I've been reading weird stuff lately, like a manga called Marriage Toxin, because I just randomly clicked on it, and it's not bad. It's quite entertaining. And yesterday I finished watching Ranking of Kings, which was a really hyped about, and I loved the first 5 episodes, and then I hated it all my guts, and I really I forced myself to finish watching the season, but I don't understand how something that starts so well can get so bad so quickly. It's just the pacing is terrible. They have flashbacks within flashbacks, even for random characters who die 2 seconds after. It's so slow, and like the main plot gets so derailed by this useless stuff. Then the last couple of episodes sort of they pick it up, right? But like I was shocked about how good it was the first 5 or 6 episodes, and then I was like, why? What is this? But yeah, no, that's my that's my updates for this week.
Oh no, thank you, man. That Ranking of Kings is actually a series I've had recommended to me by a lot of people. I've heard great things, and I haven't. Maybe they only saw the first few episodes because I haven't heard that bit about that middle section there. Yeah, Ranking of Kings. Enjoy half of it. It sounds like so. I think that'll wrap up this episode of Mega Manga Monday. Thank you so much for listening and liking and subscribe. But double thanks to Carlisle and Francesco for your time and your thoughts today. Couldn't do it without you. We'll hopefully be back next week with some very exciting stuff to talk about. And I'll see you next time.
Bye. Peace.